Hello and welcome everyone to this week's episode of the podcast. This week we are joined by the wonderful Kelly Twigg. And Kelly, for anyone who has not met her before, is an incredible jeweler. She is amazing on Instagram. So if you have met her, you might have met her on Instagram. She's got a really incredible account. She shares lots about her journey in jewelry making, and also tips and all kinds of things. She makes really beautiful sea glass jewelry as well as other types of silver and now gold jewelry. And Kelly is actually on the Diploma in Silver Jewelry this year. So we're really lucky that she has been sharing her experience throughout the year. On our Instagram with something that we've called Diploma Diaries. So every week, Kelly has been telling us what she's up to, the good, the bad, the ugly, the progress, all the things. And I know a lot of you guys have been following on. So we thought we'd get Kelly on the podcast to just learn a bit more about her and her experience on the diploma and her journey in jewelry making. So, Kelly, thank you so much for coming and joining us today.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Yes. And if anyone can hear little paw footsteps in the background, that is Arlo the dog who is prowling around. I know, Kelly, you've got a
I've got,
workshop with you
I've got
as
a couple
well.
of cats creeping around various places. They might appear, yes. So,
Yeah. So
yeah.
the animals are amongst us today. Brilliant. So for anyone who's not heard about you before, Kelly, do you just want to share very briefly about your jewelry making journey, how you started, why you decided to start making jewelry?
Okay, well, I started making jewelry itself probably about, oh gosh, going back probably about 15, 20 years now. I started with gemstone beads and stringing and sort of basic wire work and things like that. And it was very much a part-time hobby. I used to be in the Royal Navy. I was an air traffic controller. So I had quite a stressful job and I've always been a creative person and I had lots of creative hobbies and outlets and jewelry making was one of them. And then after my children were born and I left the Navy, eldest is 11 now. I sort of, when they were a little bit older and they started school, I started to think, well, what am I going to do with myself now? I didn't want to rejoin the Navy. There's no way I wanted to go back and do that again because my husband still serves.
Mm.
And because my children are quite close in age, I wanted to do something from home that would enable me to still be at home, be available for them at any point. And so self-employment seemed a good option. And then at the same time, we came back to the UK. We had been living in America for a couple of years. We came back to the UK and lived by the sea in Gosport. And then I started picking up sea glass. I remember finding my first piece of sea glass when I was walking down by the beach. And I thought, oh, this is quite a nice material. And started wondering if I could turn that into something. And then I started looking up jewelry. And then started looking up metal smithing and jewelry making. And it kind of went from there. And all of a sudden, that was what I wanted to do. I did a
Mm.
couple of day courses very, very early on because I had a fear of fire. And I just wanted to see what it was like to solder, whether I could actually do this before I invested any money in tools or equipment or anything like that. And very quickly sort of got hooked. And then I've been pretty much up until I started doing the silver diploma, completely self-taught. Which is great, and I know a lot of jewelers start out that way. But it got to the stage where I'd sort of reached a plateau with my techniques and experiences, and I wanted to do a little bit more, but I needed a little bit extra help in doing that, which is one of the reasons I enrolled on the diploma.
Amazing. And it's crazy to think, isn't it? Like if you'd not walked on the beach that day and saw that sea glass, like your life could have gone in such a different direction. It always
It's,
so fast.
it's serendipitous how that sort of happens, but it's kind of, I just felt such a pull to this material and I thought, well, how can I do something with this? And
Mhm.
yeah, definitely something that I've really enjoyed doing for the last sort of 6 years. And I set up a business after the first year or so because I quickly, obviously, making jewelry is quite expensive, and I knew I was going to have to make something back to sustain it. And then everything else kind of sort of grew from there. And I found Instagram at the same sort of time, and I realized I
Mhm.
love being on social media and I love connecting with people that way. And the two things have sort of run concurrently, not intentionally, but they sort of happened along that. I have quite we're very engaged following on Instagram, and I use that platform a lot to learn through, as well as for support and encouragement and selling the jewelry that I make. So the two sort of go hand in hand for me, definitely.
Absolutely, yeah. So, how did you come across Jewelers Academy, and how did you come across the diploma program? And I suppose I'm asking a lot of questions at once, but I know some people have said, "Well, you've already been making for 10 years. Why did you start with a diploma in silver?" So maybe you can share a bit about that beginning stage of your
Well,
diploma.
definitely. I mean, I think it's been one of those things that I'd seen. I joined the Jewelers Academy sort of Facebook, or the Instagram groups and the Facebook groups a long time ago, and it's always been there, and I've had a couple of my reels shared sort of 4 or 5 years ago. So I was always part of that community, and I always wanted to do the diploma, but I think in my mind, because of the commitment with sort of with the finances, the money, the time, I just wanted to be completely sure that actually jewelry making was for me, because I didn't want to make that kind of commitment unless I was absolutely sure this is what I wanted to keep doing as a career. If I was going to change my mind 2 years afterwards and want to do something else, that would have been a bit of a of a change. So the time suddenly sort of came to be right, and I thought, well, actually, no, this is a good time. And I've run my business for a few years, and like I said, I've reached that kind of plateau, and I want to learn new techniques, and I want to learn new skills, and I want to grow the business. But in order to do that, I'm kind of in a bit of a stuck position. My children are still at sort of junior school, so they're still quite young. They're 11, 10, and 8, so they need me quite a lot. So my business, I can't put as much into it at the moment as I'd like to, but I
Mm,
know I'm sort of investing for the future when they're older, when they don't need me around quite as much. And I thought, well, this is the ideal time now, if I'm going to do any more learning, to do it now. While my business is established and it's doing well enough that it covers its own costs and it ticks along in the background. And that's quite nice. So I can afford to take some time to study and to
mm,
learn and to train. And to do that. And it's been really beneficial for all sorts of different reasons. And I think the reason I wanted to do the silver diploma, I did look at the fine diploma as well. And a lot of people did say, well, you've been making jewelry for 5 years, already. And I was like, well, there's a huge difference between experience in terms of time doing something and experience in terms of the techniques and the skills you've got doing it. So
yeah.
though I might have years of experience, actually when it comes to the techniques and the skills that I could do, I can set sea glass and I can set gemstones like cabochons and things, but that was pretty much it. I'd never worked with gold, never worked with wax, never worked with finer stones and those sorts of settings. And when I looked at the list of requirements for the fine diploma and the suggestions of things that you really ought to be able to do, by the time I'd gone back and filled in all the gaps, I might as well have done the silver diploma, which is why I'm
Yeah.
starting there. And I'm really glad. I'm really glad I have, because it's nice on one level because I have got that experience. So I'm not a complete new starter. But I think from the first term, obviously we've done the first term already, and I think there was ten projects that we did, and I think only about 2 or 3 of those had I ever done before. So there were so many brand new things just in the first term. That
Yeah.
was it was amazing to do, and it's been fun. And the experience I've got gave me the confidence, I think, definitely to get started. But
Mhm.
it's learning lots of new skills. It's just been fab. It really has.
Yeah. That's such an interesting point that you make about the time you've been making jewelry versus the techniques that you've tried, because you can make jewelry for 5 years in wax and never have done
Yeah,
anything
exactly.
else and be amazing at that. But then as soon as someone says, "Okay, let's do like a claw setting from scratch," you're like, "I just don't even know. I don't know where to start with that." So that is interesting. And I think something interesting about the diploma, which we'll kind of touch on as we go through your journey, is that there's so many different techniques that
Oh, there
it's
was. There's so many. And also you just don't know where to start. There's almost too many. And I think that's probably one of the reasons I hadn't done a lot of things before, because there was too much choice and it was so overwhelming and I just couldn't work out which one to do first. So I didn't do any. And just stuck with what I knew. And I got really good at doing that. I'm like, no, I'm gonna have to branch out. I need someone to tell me tell me what to do.
the
And I think
direction did
that way.
help.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And so how different is the diploma for you from, so what did you think it would be like and what is it actually like? And are there any differences or any things that you were surprised by or you've enjoyed?
There definitely are. I think I was nervous to start with. I got to admit, I was a little bit sort of apprehensive because, in my experience, obviously having been in the Navy, I joined the Navy when I was 18, so I was a student before that. So my only knowledge of sort of education before that was exams and school and A levels and Navy tests and exams and things like that. And I was kind of thinking, oh my goodness, a diploma, that's quite, you're making things and they're going to be assessed, and that's quite scary. Um, but the nice thing is it's not, I don't think, what a lot of people would assume it's going to be. It's a training course, but it's like your work is assessed. You have to make your things, send them off to be looked at, but they're assessed, they're not judged. And I think that's the key difference. There's no exams, there's no written knowledge. I mean, I think I said in one of my diploma diary entries, I've not made any notes at all. I've done no sort of reading, no writing, because I haven't needed to. The tutorials that are provided by Jewelers Academy is so good. and the PDFs are so good. I am a reader. I do like to read notes. And if I go back to reference things, I like to have the printed version. The PDFs are so brilliant. There's no need for me to make my own notes. And because we keep access to that once we finished the diploma, then I've got that for life. So I've got this lovely library now. If ever I want to go back and do any of these techniques, I know where that is,
Mm.
which is fab. So no, it's not nearly sort of scary. There's absolutely no reason to be nervous, I think. And it's a diploma and it's a training course, but it's not the traditional sort of diploma study like you'd expect. It's much more of a community vibe. It's a nurturing, supporting thing. You're learning, but it's like you're being like carried along and encouraged as opposed to sort of make this, have it assessed, pass fail, that kind
Mm.
of thing. So if anybody's worried about that, that's totally not that's not the
That's not the
vibe. No,
vibe.
not at all. It's not nothing like that. So no, it's a really nurturing program as
Mhm.
well,
Yeah.
which is great. And there's so much support. I mean, my mentor, Sally Howe is my mentor, and she's absolutely lovely. And she's, we've only had a few sort of sessions together, but the amount of knowledge and help and encouragement that she's got to offer, plus the Zoom calls we've got, with the other students on my course and in the Facebook group, we've got all these people alongside you, and it's great. It's a lovely experience to do, and you're part of this community, and you feel a part of a team almost. And I can completely understand people, but they say, oh, I really miss that. And when they
Mm.
finish, why they go on and they do the fine and they do the advanced, because they get so used to being in that little sort of collective that they miss it when they finish.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the structure, isn't it? And the kind of, we were talking about this before we
Mhm.
came on, the kind of, there's so many things we all want to do. I know for me, like there's so many techniques still that I want to learn or want to spend time on. But if someone is not saying, right, this week we're doing this, and everyone is going to show it, and it's going to, there's going to be a deadline, there's the accountability. I think that's really what makes a huge difference versus the kind of learning on your own aspect, which you can definitely do and pick up bits and pieces. But I think it's not possible to get that level of learning without some sort of structure in place and that quickly. Because like you said, you did 10 projects last term, you'll have 10 this term, 10
Yeah.
next. We quickly move on to other things. Maybe you could share a bit about some of your projects and which ones you've enjoyed and which ones you struggled with, or a little bit of your journey. I know it's all in the Diploma Diaries as well, but anyone
It
who's
is.
missed.
It is. Well, it's amazing actually when you look back and you see how quickly it starts to accumulate. Because I did what everyone suggested, and I bought a little tray, a little jewelry tray, and I had compartments in. And every week I put things in there. And when I came to package them all up and send them off for marking, and my daughter, one of my daughters, was watching me and goes, "My goodness, have you made all this just for the diploma?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this is just one term. This is just a third of it." And her little mind was blown by the amount of stuff that I'd made just on the course. But it's nice. There's such a lovely mix. I think my favourite ones. I enjoyed I enjoyed working with wax because that was completely new to me. That's something I'd always wanted to try, and I found that quite meditative because it
Mm,
was slow. Because I'm used to doing, you're using the pendant motor and using the tools, and it's noisy, but when you're sat carving wax, it's just this beautiful sort of silence. I was
yeah.
like, "Oh, I quite like this. This is quite
Not, isn't it?
this is slowing right down." And you can't rush it because,
Mhm.
it's only gonna go as quickly as it goes, and that was nice. That was a nice balance, and I enjoyed the stone setting. And I think what I really liked doing was the cold connections, the kinetic projects, using the
Mm.
riveting and using the hinges, which is something I probably would never have done. But after I'd finished them, I was like, "Oh, I quite like this. This is the movable kinetic jewelry," because I like to fiddle with my hands. I was like, "There's
Mm.
potential here. I could use this." And I was thinking, which of my existing designs could do with a rivet, or could I incorporate this with,
Yeah.
in a couple of flush gemstones and things like that? So no, it's a nice mix of techniques, and it's like you say, you can try all these techniques, and even if you never use them again, I think having that overall breadth of knowledge as well as having depth of knowledge at the things that you do like, because you can try all these things and then go, oh, I wasn't so keen on that, I don't want to do that anymore, but I really love this, I'm going to do this further, which is fun. I mean, the jigsaw project, I think everybody, it's like a rite of passage. Someone said it's like hazing jewelers. It's like
Yeah.
trying
Yeah.
to do the mixed
Damn.
methods. That was tough, but at the same time it was incredibly satisfying when it was done, because
Yeah.
you feel like you've achieved that. And I know a lot of people have said some people use theirs as a coaster. I'm going to stamp it with some motivational message after it comes back. Just like a little trophy. Some people have got it sat on their bench, because if
Just to
you can,
remind them. Oh, yeah, I love that. Like, "You made this. You can make anything. You
it's
did this."
symbolic. And this week in particular term too, I had a huge problem with the gold ring. I've been wearing it ever since as a talisman of,
Lovely.
perseverance, because I struggled with that one too, because that was something I'd never done. And
Mm,
sometimes it's funny because sometimes the most complicated things you can do straight away, and you think, well, that wasn't a problem at all. And sometimes the things that look really simple just go wrong. Um,
mhm,
and you don't know why. And sometimes, as jewelers, you know very quickly that sometimes you can just have off days, and you can't always predict when they're going to happen. And you roll with it. And part of it is sort of adapt and overcome, and find ways of dealing with it. And that's part of the education, um, which I quite like. And I like the challenge of doing new things as well.
yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, you feel your brain expanding with all the new
Yes.
techniques.
Yeah, you
And
can.
I guess for your business as well, like I know you said you're kind of taking like not a break from your business, but stepping back a little bit to allow yourself time to train, like you said, and it's kind of going on in the background at the same time. Are you already starting to think of like collections or new things that you could do and add like when you're
Yeah.
sort of back focused on that? Because I find when I learn new techniques, I'm like, right, I want to make a whole collection with this now.
Exactly, and you get these visions. That's one of the lovely things about doing the diploma. I think once you start making jewelry, you start making jewelry because you love it. And in the early stages, you've got all these ideas and all these, what you're going to do. But then I think as soon as you start turning that into a business and you start wanting to make money, you're kind of forced into, you have to keep making money because you're paying for a website, you're buying the new tools, you want to keep making, you've got to keep buying the materials. And I think for me, at least anyway, that kind of started to preoccupy everything. And I became very focused on, making profits, making money, making things to sell to keep going. And then I kind of didn't lose the joy, but it kind of stopped me from doing or enjoying things quite as much. And I think when you do that, like you say, you kind of start to lose that vision, disappears, and the creativity and all those ideas kind of become a little bit more tunnel visioned. Um,
Mm,
and I was getting stuck for ideas. And some days I did try and take a day out now and then just to sort of make something for fun. But it's really hard when you don't know what to make and what to do. And I could sit at my bench all day and just procrastinate over what to do because I didn't know. But then you got the diploma and taking time out and thinking, well, I'm still investing in my business, but I'm investing in my training and my knowledge. And then all of a sudden you do get all these fresh ideas. And it has reignited my creativity in a way because the nice thing is I can sit down at the bench and I normally pick Wednesdays or Thursdays as my diploma day. And I put everything else aside. And it's funny because it almost feels like a guilty pleasure that I can sit down and just have a selfish day just making. But the nice thing is with the Jewelers Academy have said to me, right, you're going to make this. These are the materials you need. These are the tools you're going to use. This is how you do it. And this is what we're looking for. And that just, all of a sudden, it's like, right, someone's telling me what to do. And I like that. And from there, you then, I have to fight with my own design sometimes and my ideas to try and keep things simple and not run away and get too over the top. I did learn that very, very early on. And Sally did point that out as well, my mentor with the marking. Don't try and get too carried away with your ideas because you're either going to mess it up or you're going to run out of time. Just look at the brief, answer the question, do what's required, and then you can go on and do other things. And in doing that, I have actually bought, I didn't have time to do them over Christmas, but I've already ordered the materials to do some of the projects that we learned, to do them again and put my own spin on it. The ones that I've finished for the diploma have gone off for marking, so the pressure there is off. But I'm going to do them again and do them my way. And it, like you say, is sparking so many more creative ideas that I've got for my business, for designs, for things, and it's all there, and it's sort of like a refresh almost. It's like taking
yeah,
time out and accepting that, yeah, maybe not going to make as much money this year in my business, but I will put the time and effort into learning so that when I do go back and I do have the time again to sort of put more time into the business itself, then I've got the ideas there to sort of put in later on. So it is an investment for the future, most definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's lovely to hear you talk about it and how you're integrating it into your business and into your working practices. And I totally agree with the just training in general. Like, if I get stuck in a rut, whether it's in business or jewelry making or anything in my life, I'm like, right, what course can I do? Because when you go to a course, someone else is kind of looking after you a little bit in terms of they've got structure, they've got a plan, and often, like a lot of us, we're doing everything at home, like for everyone else. And it's like,
Spinning a lot of plates at the same time. Yeah.
it's nice to go somewhere and someone's like not asking you a question, but saying, this is what you do, giving you the instructions. And what I love seeing, and I really can't wait to see it. I'm already seeing it in your journey, but like towards the end of the course, I think it will be really come really clear is that incremental learning. And like you said, just focusing on the projects, but within a year's time, it will be amazing what you can do. Like you'll just be like, I can't believe I can do all these things now.
Yeah.
Like my toolkit has just expanded so much and I've had fun while I'm doing it. And yeah, so it's really nice to see. And you've been doing the Diploma Diaries, which has been awesome. For anyone who's not seen or heard of the Diploma Diaries, you just want to share a bit about what that is and where they can go find it and stuff.
Well, basically, what that is every week I sit down and I do the projects for the diploma because I get a new project every week. And what I've been doing is literally recording the process and putting it together. And some of them, depending on what I'm making and how I get on, some of them have ended up being sort of behind the scenes making. Some of them have ended up being tips that I've discovered, if there's more tips or useful things that I've learnt. And other ones are sort of me talking through what went well and what didn't go well and things like that. So it's kind of learning for me, sharing the journey as I'm going, but it's also helpful for other people. And every Sunday, they've been shared on the Jewellers Academy Instagram page, so you can find them there in reels. And also, I think we use the hashtag JA Diploma Diaries, so you can see if I post any of my own reels. Sometimes on my own Instagram page, I will go back and I'll post the making process, all the bits that I didn't have time to include in my diploma diary entries, because that's more of a sort of documentary narrative and an explanation of what I'm doing. And then for my own followers, I will just put the making of, so people can see the sort of start to finish process of things. So that it's all out there. But it's brilliant, and in doing that, the reception that I've got back is has been amazing because it's quite hard to a certain extent. You think I'm doing this diploma and I'm kind of vulnerable in that I'm putting myself out there and I'm letting the world watch me do this, um, which could be sort of nerve wracking. But and especially when things go wrong and make mistakes. But I've never been shy of just being honest and being myself and just telling the truth and just saying things as they are. Whether it's going really well or whether it's a total disaster. But I think that resonates with so many people, and the response I've got back has been brilliant because people that are sort of encouraging me and motivating me and supporting me, and it's like having a team of cheerleaders. And I put one post out when I was doing the jigsaw project that I struggled with. Just soaring in a straight line was just not happening for me that day. I just put a very simple post out saying, how hard can it be to soar in a straight line? And the response I got back was amazing because all the jewelers that follow me were there to help. They jumped straight in and they're offering their tips and suggestions. And have you tried this? Have you tried that? And I'm like, oh my God, no, I haven't. Let's go and try that now. And then all the people that follow me that aren't necessarily jewelers, they've got no sort of technical background, are there, and they're the ones saying, no, come on, you can do this, that looks really hard, but they're offering positive encouragement and support. And it's brilliant to be able to share the journey, but not just it's not a one-way thing at all. I'm getting so much back from the people that watch it in return, and it's making it a lot easier for me. And obviously I've got the Facebook community and I've got my student group as well, so it's nice to know that you're doing it and you're not doing it alone.
Mm.
That there's motivation there as well. And it's when you have a really bad day and things just go horribly wrong, people are like, no, don't worry, you can do this. And it's keep the faith, and just knowing in the background that that's going on makes a huge difference for me than just if I was just sat alone trying to read a book and teach myself something, it just wouldn't happen. So
Mm.
it's
Yeah,
it's really
yeah,
helpful.
absolutely. You need the support, don't you? And I think, it's
Definitely.
amazing you're able to get all this support on Instagram. And I think it's because you are vulnerable and you put yourself out there and you show like, oh, these are the things I'm learning. This is what's happening. This is not going well. This is going well. And, we all love just connecting with people in that way. I think where you're not just presenting and saying, look how great I am at doing everything, even though you are great at doing very many. But it's because it's a learning journey. And we say this with people who join the diploma all the time, like if you can do everything perfectly, you're probably on the wrong course because what are you learning if you could just do everything perfect? Like it's fun, but it's we want to challenge you guys, and it's nice to see. Like I never feel bad when someone says, "Oh, I'm really struggling with this," because I think, well, how much learning is on the other side of that?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not nice in the struggle; it's part of the journey. But and to have other people to help us through, and sometimes just saying "me too," like yes, I also struggle with that, and that sometimes that's enough, and we're like, okay, I'm not crazy. Like this is a normal part of the journey. I can
It's
keep going.
it's that reassurance, and so many people have said, "Oh my god, I found this hard too." And what struck me was so many people were replying saying, "Oh my god, thank you so much for being so honest and for saying that," because everyone's experiencing it, and we all know that, but until people actually admit it and they're not afraid to say, "This is hard," um, people don't sort of realize. But I think, but it works in favor too, in that as jewelers and making handmade jewelry, it does go to show not just what goes into the jewelry itself and how many hours it takes and how many tools you need, and there's a lot involved in making the jewelry, but it's also what goes into it in terms of the passion and what we put ourselves through to learn these skills and to train and to get these techniques. And it's not a case of just picking up a piece of silver and turning it into jewelry in half an hour. There you go. There's so much more to it, and I think people are aware and they're appreciating that actually, as jewelers, like with any profession, there's a lot of training, there's a lot of knowledge that you need, and practice that you need to do, and sometimes it doesn't always come naturally. Like you say, you can't be good at everything all the time.
Mm,
So it can
yeah.
be quite a hard one sort of battle, but it's worth doing, and that's the love and the passion and it's the care, and the reason we're doing it is because we love what we do, and I think that goes through, and that comes through in the jewelry that we make. And I know that's why a lot of people choose to buy and invest in handmade jewelry, because it's unique and because it's got that story behind it, and it's made with passion in those sorts of ways. So
Yes.
it's all
Blood,
part of
sweat,
the
and
process.
tears goes into
Literally blood, sweat, and tears sometimes, yeah. That's some very rude words a lot of the time as well.
it. Yeah, it's whatever helps us get through. And tell us a bit about your diploma group, because you mentioned Sally's your mentor and you've had some really wonderful sessions. Sally is amazing, and she's a very
She's lovely.
nurturing kind of spirit as well, which is wonderful. So tell us about the group. What's that like?
It's amazing. I mean, we get a call every fortnight, and we sort of sit together like a Zoom call for an hour, and Sally sort of leads it. But it's like one great big brainstorming session. And it's lovely because we've got jewelers from literally all over the world. I think in my group there's two or at least three people that are based in America, overseas. There's a couple in Europe. So we're literally all over the world coming together to make jewelry on this course together. And it's lovely. It's brainstorming ideas and going through and saying, well, this bit was really hard. I struggled with this. And it's sort of bouncing ideas off each other. And one person can go, oh, I struggled with that. Have you tried this? Or I've tried that. And obviously there's different tools and different equipment, different things available in different countries. So it's quite nice to be able to say, oh, over here, we do it this way, or we've got this. And sort of literally bouncing the ideas off, and the techniques, and feedback and encouragement. And that's nice to know as well. Definitely that makes a huge difference to talk through it with people. I think.
Absolutely, yeah. It's important, isn't it? Because when you're in the middle of a project and something's gone wrong and you just need someone to give you that little bit of reassurance, or that that other way that they could try. Because I think that's another interesting thing that I found with filming all the diploma courses with all the tutors, is that different tutors will do the exact same thing in a different way.
Mm,
And some students really respond well to one way and some respond to another. And I think sometimes when we're just learning from one person, I mean, it's great to learn from someone, but we can start to feel like if I can't do it how they do it, then I can't do it.
yeah,
But the truth is, there are like 4, 5, sometimes 100 different ways to do the
so
exact same.
many. Yeah. I think that's
Yeah,
that's that's one of the reasons is I love doing the diploma as well. Is not only am I learning all the new techniques, but it's also sort of consolidating what I already knew. So if it's doing something the way that I've done it, that's kind of like, oh, reassurance. Oh, I was doing that right, or that is okay. And like you said, I know there are lots of different ways of doing things, but in doing that, there are some things I've found, and I think, oh, I like that way better. I'm going to do it that way. And you pick a mix, pick and choose the ways and the means that work for you. But what's also quite nice is now, um, it's massively helped my confidence, I think, as a jeweler, in terms of thinking what I know and the confidence to ask, especially on Instagram, where I do have quite a large following, and people will ask me technical questions, and they'll ask me, what do you do about this? What do I do about this? And up until sort of even starting the diploma, a little part of the back of my mind was going, I'm not qualified to give you advice. I don't know what I'm talking about. I've not had any kind of training. But now, having done the diploma, even for a term, it's that reassurance that, yeah, I do know what I'm doing and I do have the skills to answer. And I can now say, well, I do it this way, but you can also do it this way and this way and this way. And that's quite nice. And I know there are some jewelers out there who are like, it's my way or the highway. And they're very, it has to be done a particular
Bless
way.
them, bless them.
Yes, we've all met those, but I think overall, this people are very willing to share ideas, and I'm always one of the things that my followers love most on Instagram is if I come across a tool or a shortcut or a tip or a way of doing something, I get so excited about it because I know the difference that can make that I need to share that with everyone.
Mm,
And then people can take those things and use them or not, and it's where somewhere I think where you can get some of your best ideas is from these little brain waves that other people have that you
mm.
you share, and it can make a huge difference, especially in jewelry making. I think anything that comes that will save time or make things a little bit easier, because I think
Yeah.
sometimes can make a huge difference, especially saving the stress.
Yes, and if you're running a business, time, is one of the currencies. So even though it's nice on a course to take your time, like when you move it into the business arena, you do have to think, is this viable? Like how long is this going to take? And can it fit into my pricing and all those things? So anything that can help with that is really effective. And it's so lovely to hear you talk about your experience on it. And I was just reflecting as you were talking just then on like when I was first learning like 20 years ago and how different it was and how nobody really wanted to share anything with anyone, and tradespeople were very had, like, the
Oh, the
cards very close
gatekeeping,
to
it's like
their chest.
secretive. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just like I was like, "I wanna learn to make jewelry," and it was, like, really hard to do, which is why kind of London Jewelry School started and why Jewellers Academy started, because I did start finding jewelers who were like, "Oh, I wanna teach, I wanna share, I wanna pass on my knowledge," and it's so lovely that we have a whole community like that now, and actually the wider community on Instagram is really like that as well,
It
but
is.
I don't know how many people know that it's not been that long that this has been this way. Like it was a very different world, even just a couple of decades ago. So it's so lovely to hear about your experience in our community, but also in the wider community of jewelry makers. So if somebody who's listening was thinking, oh, I might sign up, I'm not sure if it's right for me. Like it seems great for Kelly, but because it's hard, isn't it? It's a big decision, and we have the deadline for the 18-month payment plan coming up shortly. We also have an open day for the Silver Diploma later this week, which you guys are very welcome to come along to learn more about the curriculum and exactly how the course works. But what would you say to somebody who's kind of considering it and not sure at this stage?
Um, I would say just go for it, because I think I put it off for a couple of years. Like I said, I wasn't sure if that was right for my business, and I think now, having started it, my only regret would be not having done it a little bit earlier. And then I would have had a couple more years to have put those techniques and make those new collections and use those things. And I think it can be sort of the fear of the unknown. If you want something badly enough and you want the outcome and you want to be able to do it, then you totally absolutely can. And the way it's structured and the way it's taught, um, you can't really go wrong. And I have noticed already there's a nice balance with the projects, that if you do have something particularly tough one week, then it's counterbalanced by something else. I've noticed this nice sort of wave pattern that you follow. So it's not like all at once. And you do get at the end, the 2 weeks at the end, sort of like workshop weeks to just catch up is a brilliant idea, because you've got that. And I think my top tip would be, with the way you approach it, is to not feel the pressure or the stress. And I think one of the most useful things that Sally said, I think in our first Zoom call actually, was pointing out to us and saying, don't strive for perfection in everything. And that was quite hard for me, because having had experience and knowing that people are watching my journey, you kind of think, oh my goodness, I'm making things, it's going to go and be assessed by other jewelers and they're going to be looking really closely. And you feel that pressure. But actually, it's not like that at all. And she did point out that if you're working really hard and you're doing it over and over and over again to hand in the perfect pieces, well, then you're not really benefiting from the diploma because she'll have nothing to say. And like I said before, you're being assessed, but you're not being judged. So it's the flaws, it's the mistakes, it's the things that didn't quite go right that gives the mentors something to give you feedback on, and to be constructive criticism and to say, well, I can see this has gone slightly not great here. Have you tried it this way or this way? And that's a far better way of learning. And I think once I sort of made that decision in my mind to let go of the perfectionism, the same way as I said not to get too carried away with the design of the ideas and to sort of stick all the bells and whistles on, just to stick to the brief and focus on the task in hand. I think in doing that for the benefit of getting the feedback from Sally and what I in terms of time. Because if I had completed everything, I wouldn't have finished. And, I was doing my diploma diaries and sort of recording it, and that kept me on track as well. But I made everything once. And even though I was very tempted sometimes to think, oh, I could do better than that. That's a bit
Mm.
rubbish. The very first thing I made, the sawn out piercing pendant, I did it. And I thought, oh, I could do better than that. I know I can do better than that. Oh, you probably can, but not now. And
Yeah.
the whole point is doing the diploma and learning all these things and these projects, and they don't have to be perfect now, because the
Mm.
whole point of doing this is skills improve so that the things that I make at the end are perfect. So I can, learn now and achieve perfection later. And that was the huge biggest mindset for me, is to not start it think with the pressure of thinking it has to be perfect every time.
So, what would you say is the best part of the diploma for you?
The best part for me, I think, actually, I would say the actual making. Obviously, the making and the new technical skills and learning all these things is one thing. But I think for me, is a benefit that was unexpected, and that was the structure and the routine it's brought back to my week, actually, which I hadn't sort of anticipated. Is that in doing this learning, because I've got to do these projects every week, and because it's run in real time, and I know we do get those 2 weeks at the end to sort of finish up and things, because you're running it in a cohort with other people, it keeps you on track. And so every week I know that I've got to get my diploma project done. And last term, I managed to keep up, and I kept up in time, and I did everything in the right weeks, which was great. So it worked. So what having my routine is I watch the videos when they're released on the Monday morning. I'll watch the videos, the tutorials on the Monday night, or maybe the Tuesday night, and then Wednesday and Thursday are my diploma days set aside. And because I'm doing that, everything else in my sort of life and my business has to fit around those. I think before I started the diploma, my weeks were a little bit sort of chaotic in that, oh, I need to make a bit of this, do a bit of this, I need to do some photography. And there wasn't really a structure as such. And sort of the weeks merged, and it was sort of sometimes hard to focus and find sort of structure. But having the diploma literally in the middle of my week now means I have to fit everything else around it. And that's been hugely beneficial, because it's kind of brought my mindset back and focus, and made me a lot more better at structuring my time with everything,
Mm.
which is nice, because it's not like a deadline as such. Because if you can't do one thing one week, you've got a lot of flexibility in there. Because I know some people struggle to, you're ill for one week or you can't complete it or whatever. But having that has been hugely beneficial, and I've enjoyed it. And I really like just taking a day out to just sit and make for the sake of making. That's been amazing. So that for me, I think, is almost been more beneficial than learning the new techniques, is actually just having this in my life, just kind of like sort of leveling it out a little bit in a way, which is nice.
Mhm.
But one thing I was going to say as well, I would give a tip to anyone if they're doing it, um, on the structure and the organization side of it, is the material pack. The best thing I did was order the material pack, because this is the brilliant thing about the diploma, is if you've and already had all the tools, but if you order the materials as well, is that everything I need is in a little bag and it's labeled. So every week I can sit down at the bench, I go in this bag, I pull out the numbers, there's a spreadsheet. It's so beautifully organized and put together, which is another one of the things that I really love about it. And everything I need is there. It's numbered. Take the bags out, follow the instructions, and there you go. And it couldn't be made any more easier, other than having someone come and actually make it for me, And it's so well put together and organized, and that's made a huge difference. And it's, that there's nothing to worry about, and the emails come out and everything's there and the guidance, and you're led gently through it, which is brilliant. So it's
Mhm.
been massive as an experience as well as actually learning these projects. So yeah, totally recommend it. But yeah, get the material pack if you're thinking about doing it, because that will make your life so much easier.
Yes. Pro tip. There are literally people, Marae and her team, that spend all year building the material packs. That's how long it takes because there's so much. I think there's like 300 items
Oh,
in the two material
it's
packs.
it's indexed and it's labeled. Obviously, they've been doing it a while and it's indexed and labeled. But because if I know that if I had to source these things myself, I would either have ended up buying, the wrong thing, or I'd have ended up getting 2 or 3 times the amount because I'd have got spares and extras and that I wouldn't have needed. But having just what you need there, it's just perfect because everything is just literally ready to go. Open the packets and crack on, and I love that. I love
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah, we've got enough to think about with the learning, so we need to make sure everything's ready.
Yes, yes.
So, what is next for you, Kelly? Obviously, you're going to continue your journey. And actually, I know a little bit of what's next because you're coming to teach with us
Yes,
at Children's
yes,
Academy Brighton,
I am.
which is really exciting. So yeah, those are guys who might be coming to Brighton. Kelly is going to be teaching the sea glass course there. We're very excited to have you join the tutor team. But yeah, what's your plan? What's coming up on the horizon for you?
Well, I've always wanted to teach. I love teaching. I used to teach when I was in the Navy. I was an instructor. I was the training officer at the air station I was based at. So I used to teach people, and I've always loved passing on my knowledge. And again, one of the reasons I love Instagram as much, and I don't believe in gatekeeping, is if I learn something new or I find a new tip, I get excited about it. I want to share it with everybody. So teaching for me, it's like I do believe in karma, and I believe in paying it forward. And I get so much out of the social media and my following. It's nice to be able to give something back. So I'm really looking forward to teaching people, and learning new skills and learning some more myself. I've seen on the list of Brighton, there's several things that I want to have a go at too. So I think, do the diploma and then have a look at those skills and, refining my business and tidying that up at the end of it. And there's time. Like I said, my children are going to be starting senior school in a couple of years. So I will have more time to put into it. So it's thinking about that now so that I can sort of make more of a go of it later. And I'm doing a sub brand. I'm actually with my jewelry business itself. I'm going to be setting up a sub brand, because when I started, I had all the ideas and all the different styles and techniques, and it's kind of a bit of a mismatch of everything. Is sort of using the new skills that I'm learning and sort of streamlining that down. So all the sea glass and the nautical and the ocean themed things are going to go in one brand, and then Willow and Twig can be the flowers, the nature, and other things. And that's part of the sort of natural progression. I think you have a business at the beginning; it's very trial and error, and you don't know what you're doing. And doing the diploma is part of that, in finding the techniques, the skills, and the styles that I love, and then using those new skills to create new collections, to refine what I've got, tidy it up, and then sort of go from there. And I'm excited by the idea of that, of sort of having like a declutter of my business, not starting again, but just kind of taking everything I've learnt in the last five or
Level
six years.
upgrade. Mhm.
Yeah.
And I
So
think
yeah,
that happens when you develop your training as well. I see it happen with most people actually who go through the diploma in silver when they hit the fine or around that point, they're like, okay, I need to change things now. I'm not the person that I was a year
yeah.
ago and ready for the next chapter. And I love that, seeing the progression and the how things are going with the journey. So we're all very excited to keep following your journey, Kelly. And I love that you share it and you share it so beautifully. It's not just like you just throw stuff up on Instagram. You spend a lot of time and create these beautiful reels and content. So anyone who's not following Kelly already, definitely go and give her a follow. Where can people find you online and come check out your jewelry?
Well, I've got obviously Instagram. Willow and Twig is my handle, and I got my own website, and I sell on a couple of other platforms and things. But Instagram is probably where I'm most active, where I have most followers, and I get the most out of it. And obviously, if you want to learn how to make jewelry, sea glass jewelry, then come and see me at Brighton, because I know a couple of people have already messaged me and said they're going to come, and learn sea glass with me, which I love. So yeah, I'm really excited to get the chance to actually meet people in real life as well.
My
So
goodness, we're gonna be like excitement overload. Like, oh my goodness, real
Well,
life, make
that's
them together.
one of the things I've missed, having been in the Navy for so long and then coming out, is you miss being part of a team and having people around you. And it sounds like a cliche, but I think, and obviously the pandemic, a lot of us went through that. We had so much time in isolation away from people, to be able to make jewelry in a big studio and have that that community and that atmosphere is really exciting. So I'm looking forward to that, definitely.
Yeah. Absolutely awesome. And if you are listening and thinking, I'd like to give that diploma in silver jewelry a go, we will put a link in the show notes. Enrollment is open now. It closes in a couple of months, but there is an 18-month payment plan available at the moment, which is the most affordable way to do it. And a lot of jewelers will make and sell their jewelry each month to pay for it, which is a great way to motivate yourself in business as well. So there's no excuses why not to join. Um, and like I mentioned, we do have an open day this week as well. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes too. Feel free to come along, and I'll be showing lots of pictures of the projects and talking about exactly what you'll make in the course as well. So Kelly, thanks so much for being so enthusiastic and, so supportive and such a wonderful part of the community. I really, have very appreciative of you and everything that you're sharing, and wish you the best of luck with term two. And we'll be watching the Diploma Diaries to see how you're getting on there too.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot.